Yo, what's going on, guys? Dewobs here. Welcome back to a brand new video. Today we have some big updates. We have some awesome balance changes that have an amazing change for Thor, a cool update that was found in the game files, and also the brand new skin coming this week, the Phoenix Force Moon Knight skin has finally been fully revealed. So let's start with the new Moon Knight skin. The Phoenix Knight skin has had its trailer dropped, and well, I'm gonna say it right here, it was a very surprising one because I thought this would for sure be legendary since the Iron Fist skin was epic, but no, the Moon Knight skin is also going to be epic, meaning it will be bundled for 1,600 units, which I guess is a positive for those of you who wanted it cheaper, but it also means it doesn't really have as many of effects as we thought. But here we have the MVP animation, and it is pure aura. I mean, that's probably one of the best MVP animations I've seen. All of the fire, the way he summons his crescent darts, it looks so cool. The flaming cape is something else. But then when we move over to the gameplay, since this is an epic skin, there are no special visual effects or sound effects for the abilities. However, we can see there are some cool effects on the skin itself. First of all, we can see the cape has this fiery effect. Now, it would have looked so much better if it was a complete flaming cape, but I guess they just couldn't work that into the skin. We can also see from the front view that the skin itself seems to be on fire. So the cape, his eyes, the crescent dart, it all has flames protruding off of it, which I think is a really cool touch. But no, we don't have any special sound effects or fiery visual effects for the abilities. The ultimate is still the same. I think this would have looked so much cooler if it was fiery, but I guess they decided against it. It will also be bundled with the emote. You can see here the emote is basically just him showing off his new Phoenix Force abilities. His fiery hands, it does look really cool. I mean, the skin is so cool. I think if it was legendary, they would have made it even better. I think if it had sound effects or visual effects, it would have been a 10 out of 10 skin. But I think the fact that it's epic has the positive that it is cheaper. So I think I might be getting this skin. I think I have most of the Moon Knight skins, and they definitely still cooked with this. And the fact that this isn't legendary, I personally believe means we are going to be getting plenty more Phoenix Force skins in Season 3 if they release Jean Grey, and we'll have to wait before we get a legendary Phoenix Force skin. So a missed opportunity not being legendary, but I think that means there's plenty more to come. But what does this week's update have in store for us? Now let's take a look at the balance changes coming in this week's update. So on Friday, there will be a few buffs and nerfs to tweak some of the heroes. But first off, we have a really nice quality of life change for Thor, and I think this ends up being a huge buff. Probably the most effective buff on this entire list, and that is the Awakening Rune is getting a new mechanic. After casting Awakening Rune, you can now manually cancel the awakened state after a brief delay. So this was a huge problem with Thor, and I always found the times that I've played Thor, I have this same problem where once you activate the Awakening Rune, you're in this state where you can't really do anything else other than fire those lightning bursts, which makes you extremely predictable. If the enemy has more than 2 brain cells, they know that you can't escape during this state until the cooldown is over. But this will allow you to cancel the ability at any point. And with the recent changes allowing you to have Thor Force slightly more often, I think it makes it even more impactful, as now you can use the Awakening Rune without any negative side effect, which will completely change the playstyle for good Thor players and incorporate the Awakening Rune far more into your playstyle. So I definitely think this is a huge W for Thor. I know there are a lot of mixed opinions on the recent Thor rework, and a lot of people still believe that that was a nerf. So this is a positive sign for Thor. Moving on, they're also going to be buffing Moon Knight. Now, are they doing this because he gets an awesome skin? I don't think so. I think this buff is valid. It is just an increase in his health. They're buffing his base health from 250 to 275. Now, I've already seen a lot of lower level players saying that Moon Knight didn't need a buff, and that's just because Moon Knight is one of those heroes that dominates the lower ranks, where people don't know how to play against him. They don't know how to shoot his onks. But as you get to the higher ranks, Moon Knight is just not as viable. So this buff will put him on the map slightly more. They're also going to be buffing Star-Lord. Now, this is for his damage fall-off. They're decreasing the damage fall-off for his primary fire. His element guns will now have a maximum damage fall-off at 25 meters of 65% total damage instead of 60%. So yeah, slightly reduced damage fall off. It's not a huge change. I think once again, it's valid. There'll be mixed reactions from the community, but it's not a crazy change anyway. They also seem to be doing some updates to try and combat the Storm ultimate combos. Of course, we have the Jeff-Nado and the Fire Tornado. And to nerf those, they've increased the energy cost for Omega Hurricane, her ultimate ability, from 3,100 to 3,400. So just under a 10% increase in the ultimate cost. So you'll be getting it slightly slower to help reduce the effect of that ultimate. And they're also nerfing the Jeff-Nado team up directly because, again, this is just an incredibly powerful ability. There's very little you can do to counter it. Now, they're not doing a huge nerf. They're increasing the time required to devour enemies from 1.2 seconds to 1.5 seconds. So what I believe this means is that when you activate the team up, so when Jeff actually combines with the Storm ult, it will take 1.5 seconds to actually eat the enemies. That means pulling them in and consuming them so that they're swallowed by Jeff, and then start taking the crazy damage. So a very small change, literally just 0.3 seconds longer to actually consume the enemy. It still does crazy damage. It's still going to be extremely powerful. They're also nerfing the Rocket and Peni Parker team up. Now, they're not nerfing it for Rocket's side. They're nerfing it on Penny's side. And that is by simply increasing the cooldown of the Armored Spider Nest from 20 seconds to 30 seconds. So the extra team-up Spider Nest that Peni has now has a 10-second longer cooldown when it's completely destroyed. I've heard a lot of Peni players upset with this because they still think Peni wasn't extremely overpowered even with this team-up, and 10 extra seconds is a pretty huge nerf. But I suppose that aligns with more of the other team-ups. A lot of team-ups already have 30-second cooldowns, and she still has access to all her other abilities. It's a very good team-up, so we'll have to say. And the final team-up that has had a change is the Chilling Assault Lunar Snow Hawkeye team-up. This has been hit with a pretty huge nerf. It's definitely going to make it way less powerful. It is a very cool team-up ability. The fact it can freeze players, shoot through walls. It has a huge spell field, very easy to hit, and can do a lot of damage. And they've basically nerfed it in all sensors. So they've reduced its base damage from 30 to 25. So this is when you hit it really close. And that means its maximum damage at 30 meters is also reduced from 120 to 100. So overall, it will deal about 20% less damage, and they've reduced its stun duration for enemies that are hit beyond 30 meters from 1.5 seconds to just a 0.8 second stun. So halving the time that you will be frozen when hit with this, and they've reduced its spell field damage range from 3 meters to 1 meter. So it will no longer have a giant hitbox. You'll have to be much more precise to actually hit players with this, and it means you'll be less likely to hit multiple enemies, which is what made it a really strong ability. So yeah, those are all the buffs and nerfs coming in this balance update. We also have some bug fixes in this set of patch notes that I want to quickly go over. So for Wolverine's ultimate, they fixed a bug where sometimes his ultimate could incorrectly send enemies with unstoppable status flying. For Mr. Fantastic, they fixed a rare occurring error where his flexible elongation could sometimes incorrectly interact with the environment, leading to self-inflicted terrain KOs. For Hulk, they've removed a bug in Hulk's incredible leap charge bar UI, where the display did not match the actual progress. For Black Widow, they fixed a bug where her team-up ability with Punisher didn't damage destructible objects. And for Ultron, they removed a bug where sometimes performing certain actions after using Ultron's imperative patch would cause it to glitch out and cancel the effect. So that's everything we've got in the patch notes. And lastly, to finish the video, I want to mention something else that was found in the game files. So Psylocke.gg did find some interesting voice lines that exist within the game files that are for anti-healing. Now, these might be old scrapped voice lines when they thought of adding an anti-heal ability like Anna from Overwatch in Marvel Rivals, but there are voice lines which represent the heroes not being able to heal despite being healed by their teammates. So I think there definitely are plans to add anti-healing abilities in the future of Marvel Rivals. There was also voice lines for being on fire. Now, some people thought this could mean literally being on fire. For example, if you're attacked by the Phoenix in Season 3, but this was most likely scrapped voice lines for when you were playing well in-game, that your character would be on fire, just like in Overwatch, where your hero portrait catches fire when you're performing really well. So I guess that was something they thought of implementing in Marvel Rivals in the early days, and might come back in the future, since they recorded some voice lines for that. So there you go, that is the weekly update. I think some very nice balance changes. We'll have plenty more to come in Season 3, I'm sure of it. And a big surprise when it came to that Moon Knight skin. I really thought it would be legendary. Anyway, that's it from me, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.